Oh, guys, good, you hear? I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da-da-da-da, 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 the Groomer Next Door production. And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
Groomer Next Door podcast.
I'm from Missouri. That's all I know.
Hello, Pups and Kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled and informative episode of the Groomer Next Door podcast. I'm your host, Chris Creed, and joining us this week is Patricia Stevens. She's got a great website called FloridaPets.net. We're going to talk all about travel and Florida on this episode. And you know what? We're in that time of the year where travel is, well, let's be realistic. It's something we're all going to hopefully do. Not me per se, but you guys will do it. I'll be traveling through the podcast, I guess. Going to all different places. And, well, you're listening to me, whether at your desk, in your car, wherever. So I'm traveling there, just in spirit. Well, let's go into our fact of the week. The Beatles song, A Day in the Life, has an extra high-pitched whistle audible only to causing some dogs to howl. It was recorded by Paul McCartney for the enjoyment of his Shetland sheepdog. Did not know that, and I found that to be very funny. That's kind of funny to me. Well, by that sound, Patricia is about to enter the podcast studio. So, welcome, Dog Writers Association, wonderful lady, great website developer, Floridian, etc., Patricia Stevens, to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
All right, this week on the podcast, I am really excited because I get to know a little bit more about Florida, and I get to actually find out where I can take my pets. And it was something I tried to do about a year ago with another podcaster who I won't even leave the name out, but we were supposed to get together, and he was a famous Floridian who was going to actually help out with this. But this week, we actually have the best when it comes to travel in Florida. We have Patricia Stevens, and she's going to talk Florida and pets. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Chris.
Always a pleasure. I mean, I've only been to Florida once. I got to make it back. And I always say, you know what? Travel, especially during this time of year, we've got beautiful weather, and where else to go besides Florida? And, you know, it's a good thing. So I always start out everything with somebody's origin story. Because, honestly, to become Patricia Stevens, there had to be a beginning. So let us know, how did you become who you are?
Well, I was born in West Virginia, and I was adopted at age 2, and just always loved water. My parents couldn't even keep me out of the bathtub. I just always loved water, and I used to say when I was growing up, someday I'm going to live in Florida. And for some reason, that was the state where you had to go if you wanted to, be around water. Even though there are other states with coast, it was Florida. And sure enough, when I was 29, I got married, and we moved to Florida. And I've been here ever since, and I just love it. It's where I want to be. It's home.
It's home, right? And it's funny because there are places that, and I never understood this. There are places that we may have grown up, we don't consider home, and yet there's, you can move and find that, and that's home. I still feel like Southern California is my home. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm kind of almost a guest in the state I'm in, but I hear people all the time say, I am always going to be from XYZ, and I'm like, oh, I get that. I get that
right.
reference.
Well, West Virginia is a beautiful state, and it is marvelous. There are lots of things to do there, too. But once I came to Florida, and we would go back to visit, everything just seemed very dreary and dark. And down here in Florida, everything's pastel and water and sunshine, and I guess it just made me feel happier. So.
Well, and you got Disney World, which you can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't.
That is like the best place in the world. And yet, I've yet to take my daughter. Shocking, I know.
Well, bucket list.
Bucket list is true. Well, I want to actually go into the first thing, which is, of course, Dog Writers Association. And I thought that was really interesting. We were talking about this before we started recording, and I wanted to know all about that particular association and how you got to be a part of it.
Several people actually through the years have said to me, you need to belong to Dog Writers Association of America. I looked it up and I had toyed with it, and at first glance I was like, well, I'm not good enough I'm not good enough to belong to something like that, and if I send something in and they reject me, I'm just going to be bummed out, because I really at that point wanted to become a member. So it was about, 8 months ago, I just decided to do it. And it was a while, and they accepted me. I didn't hear right back, and so I was nervous, but they did accept me, and I am a proud member now, and I'm very happy to be with them. It's part of my DNA, and why not belong to something like that,
So how is that process? I mean, because I've heard of it, and yet I've been asked, why don't I join something like that? And I'm like, because I don't write. But I was told, oh, well, the podcast actually, is very similar. And I feel the same way. I'm like, well, this is my goofy thing that I do, and I don't feel like I'm, anything to that. So I was always wondered, what is that process like? And kind of walk us through it, because I'm lost.
Well, you complete an application on the website, and they ask you what things you have written or for podcast, something you have produced in a creative fashion that they can look at and evaluate and see, is this the sort of thing that we would want a member to be engaged in? And if it's especially dog-centric, they will definitely look at you in a very favorable manner, and then they'll let you know if they accept you. And you would have a very good chance of that, Chris, because of what you do. So I say go to their website, fill out the application, and do it.
I just don't. I've never felt like I was that great, but you know what? I've now heard it twice, and I'm going, maybe it would be fun to actually be part of that. So I think I found my next thing to do. So maybe by the time
that's how I found. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I found you. I was just going to say that's how I found you. Was a member had sent out an email to some of us saying you should get in touch with Chris. I've done one of his podcasts. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You might like it too. And I was like, yeah, I think I would like something like that. So that's when I got in touch with you.
And you know what? She was the one. It was Amy Shoji who.
Amy, yes.
Who actually was the one who said you really should be part of that. And I'm like, you guys are all actual authors. You guys have all done something way more than this. I mean, I write descriptions and different things on this. I always find it to be kind of like you guys are more elevated, but I've never put a lot of stock on anything that I do because I enjoy it. I don't know how to put that in any other way. I guess if you don't enjoy what you're doing,
yeah, you might as well not be doing it, right?
Right.
It's a very open and encompassing group. They're not just going to say, well, he doesn't actually have written print stuff we can look at. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, look, he's being creative. It's part of your creativity, so I say go for it.
Oh, you know what? Now that I have two actual votes of it, so I guess you know where I'm going. I told that to Amy too. I said I'll look at it, and I just felt so like almost like an imposter. But yeah, okay, you won me over.
Do it, yeah.
Now, of course, like I said, we will be talking travel, and you have something that started in 2001, which is FloridaPets.net. Yeah. And just kind of how did that take place? How did you start this? And what was that mindset to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and do this.
I had a little dog named JR. He was a Pomeranian mix that I had found in quite a mess and doctored him back to shape. And he was so loyal to me through thick and thin. That little dog was right there. And when I lost him, I said, what could I do, to kind of take some of this pain away? And it came to me one night, do something, do some writing, write something. And so I started writing, and someone said, you should do a website. And this was back when it's like, website, what's a website? I didn't even understand the internet that well back then. And because it only really had been around, 1995-ish, at least in my house. So I took a course through the community college, how to build a website, and came up with the idea of pets kind of as an honor to JR. I even have it on my website somewhere where I said this is all in honor for this wonderful little pooch I had. And it just grew from there. And then it became like, oh my gosh, I've got to be working on this thing every day. I love it, love it, love it.
So making a website back in 2001 was far different than it is today. And I can understand why you would actually take a class, because it wasn't like now where they had templates that drop in, everything worked out. It was hard to make a website, right?
Oh, yes, and I tell people this sometimes, and of course the kids today look at me like, you internet. It's like, are you a dinosaur? I hand-coded that site HTML, everything on that site. Yep. Meticulously, learning code, the whole 9 yards. So I was very proud of it when I got done. It wasn't perfect, but I never heard a lot of complaints about the programming or the design or the technical end of it. So, and it was a lot of fun to learn. But now you're right. It's like, what do you need HTML for? We got this. So.
I couldn't make a website. I'll tell you, if I didn't have all the drop-down templates, I don't think I could do that. I don't even know where I would start. 0, 1, 1, 1, 0.
You're right about that. A lot has changed. Yeah.
And it's funny because I have this conversation a lot when I say 2001. I'm like, well, that was just a few years ago, because I don't know what happened in the last decade. It just kind of it just went away. But we're talking about, and again, most of the people understand what I'm saying here because we've all been through it. But we didn't have the smartphones that you were. Really, the computer was in your hands. Flip phones. It was a different time. And so I can just imagine the difficulties. And then having to drop photos in, I don't even know how you did it.
The photos were actually the easy part. Learning to size them or things like that was harder. Because I had the Photoshop, and Photoshop is like learning a new language altogether. You might as well learn Chinese, but it was tough.
I've heard that so many times. It's just you're having to actually. What you had to do was you had to learn a new language, which was computer. And oh man, so you've actually been able to develop FloridaPets.net. And what was at the moment? What was your main goal that you wanted to set out to do for that?
It is kind of the same thing as my goal is now, is to provide readers with places to go with their pets, that people don't look at them crossways, that they can go have fun, or places if they need to find places to live, or a hotel or motel for vacation, or now that doggy dining is okay down here in Florida, places to go and have a little snack on an outdoor patio with your pet. I just wanted people to be able to be out and about with their pets and enjoy the time they had together.
So that
kind of hasn't changed. Yeah, it's not really changed through the years.
That's going to definitely lead me into my series of different questions. Because, again, my understanding of Florida is Orlando. It's really not much. It's airport, Disney World, airport. But, like I had said at the beginning of this, I was going to set out with a Disney World person who does a podcast, and we were going to do this kind of crossover. And this is better because there's a lot more to do in Florida than just go to a theme park. But
sure,
I wanted to kind of go down the list of different things. Since you are such an expert at Florida, a lot more than me, obviously. And I wanted to find out different things. Now, this could be, of course, each question can have a two-part. It could be for just the actual two-legged people or our little four-legged friends. Mm-hmm. So, best cities in Florida to go. And again, it can vary because we can always board if we have to. And that way, as the human side of it, we can go to these places. But, it also works out great when it comes to the actual canine or even cat, because people do love to travel with their cats as well. So
absolutely.
What are some of the best cities in Florida?
For the pet-friendly cities?
Well, pet-friendly and human-friendly. I mean, we give it for both.
Well, I'm kind of partial to where I live, and that is St. Augustine. That they're very open for pets. Pets are allowed on the beaches. Dogs are allowed leashed on the beaches. There are plenty of restaurants around here who allow the doggy dining. You see the animals with their pets, so you know. And there's even some stores that allow the dogs inside, like Home Depot and Lowe's, places like that. St. Augustine is also, for the human side, very artsy-fartsy. And since I'm an artsy-fartsy dog lover, this is the town. So that is one of the cities. Jacksonville is also very pet-friendly, and they have lots of beaches and dog parks. Tampa Bay area, just the Tampa Bay area in general, St. Petersburg, Tampa, that's a very pet-friendly and very active for both pets and people over there. And then Miami is also lots and lots and lots of dog parks, and, of course, lots of things for humans as well. So, to me, those are the highlighted, the biggest and the best cities.
But you didn't mention Orlando.
Well, it is, but like you said, it's mostly hotels. And a lot of the hotels, it's like, why would you want to go to Disney World and know that you're going to spend 12 hours at the park and leave your poor dog in a motel room who may or may not tear up the place? And that's what people don't often bring pets if they're going to Orlando. However, now there are a couple of, and you'll like this, there are a couple of hotels down there that kind of put out the welcome mat for the pets, and they even have pet sitting for you if you're going to go off for the day. So they're starting to recognize that now and starting to gear it more toward the pets coming with the people.
It's funny because it was I'd say about almost a year, maybe over a year ago, I started calling around to see how things were in Florida. And, man, it was, I'm sorry, we'll have to get back to you. And they never did. I was like, wow. Wow. So I thought that was weird. Now, I'm going to ask a very interesting question, at least it is to me. I'm hoping everybody else has this. But we've got a lot of issues with air travel, as you've seen in the news over the year.
Yes.
Is there a particular airline that you would recommend? I'm going to guess that the one in question is probably not going to be the one, but who knows? But a good airline to actually fly with your pet.
I can't recommend one for you.
Yeah.
Not at this time, no.
I think it's so weird that there's not a pet friend. I'm gonna say this and watch in the next few years it's gonna happen. A pet friendly airline.
Mhm.
That
would be nice. Mhm.
I just see it. Instead of having them with the luggage area, they'll be in the plane itself. There are some airlines do allow carry-ons if your dog is very small, and if the carry-on that you can stick under your chair, under your seat. And of course, we heard about that recent story where the stewardess told the girl she couldn't do that; she had to put it in the luggage thing above. Right. But there are some airlines who do allow that, but you do pay for that. You're paying an extra amount. I don't know what that is, but you do pay for it. See, I would have thought, I honestly can, because I have two Akitas, so they're not small.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're not small dogs.
No.
I could totally see where there'd be a spot where there'd, regular seats, and then there'd be a back area where there'd be a spot for the dogs, or even cats. I don't know why I see this. I mean, there's Richard Branson, if you're listening, here's your next idea. But, I mean, it makes so much sense. I mean, wouldn't you rather fly on a plane and know that, the carrier's on that plane right there in the actual airline itself instead of under it? I mean, that's how I always look at it.
Absolutely.
It's a little ridiculous, but it's ridiculous now because we're saying it. But so air travel is a challenge. So that one, and I was afraid that would be kind of what would see the question there, but, you know.
Yeah, I just personally don't have a recommendation for people for that.
It's unfortunate, and it is what it is. It almost seems like it's gotten worse. That's the hard part to think about.
Yes, I kind of feel that way myself. It's like less attention is being paid. They're taking the money to transport the animals, but they're not using due diligence, due care.
Right.
Not diligence, but due care. Yes.
And it's hard to believe. I mean, here's a life. I mean, we wouldn't treat kids like this. So why would we be treating animals like this? I mean, because it's got the word animal. I mean, come on.
Right. Right.
I know more people that are worse than animals. I mean, they are animals. But
yes. Now, while we were talking, I Googled just because I was curious. Pet Friendly Airlines USA. There are some listed here, but I can't personally recommend them because I've never used them. Some are well-known names, and some are not. So one might want to Google that to find out, and then use their own discretion as to which one to use if they were going to fly with a pet.
You know, it's funny when you ask. Yeah, I've looked them up, and I've contacted a few of them, and I'm like, hey, you know, I'd love to have you on, and so you could, you know, kind of help shed some light on it. And none of them want to talk. It's very weird. I mean, don't know.
That is weird. Yes. I just suggest, you know, if I'm going to suggest anything to people, is just to be very, very careful.
Yeah. It's challenging and very, very fine line. Now, here's of course the first thing everybody is going to need to know before they do anything is what hotel will they be staying at. And again, you know, since you're you're the expert here, pet friendly is probably the first one that I think about. And what would be some of the top hotels that you would recommend?
Well, there is a place on my website where you can go, places to vacation, and I actually do have it hooked up with a program that they can make the reservations of the motel wherever they wanted to go, right there online, right there on my website. Try to make it easier. And of course, every city is going to have different names and different places, but I would say anything. The Hyatt Regencies, they are always pet-friendly. Days Inn. Well, I was trying to think of that. Even the little Econo Lodges are pet-friendly. Omnis. Actually, most of the really large motels are. And many of the small motels, just depending on what experience they've had with people. That's the main thing, Chris. Let me say that right here. That's the main thing. And I always tell people, places are as pet-friendly as the last bad pet person.
I like that.
Because if they've had a bad experience with somebody with a pet, they're not likely to be as pet-friendly, and maybe not even at all the next week. And they can change their pet policies at the drop of a hat.
So I guess asking the question about size of pet, that can be almost in the same side of, well, you know, the last German Shepherd really tore the place up to only Yorkies, the size of a Yorkie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's something for everybody to keep in mind. I know it's like, it seems like you're acting childish about it, but at the same time, it is. Every place is as pet-friendly as that last person with a pet left the place. Their impression in their mind. They may even charge more. Okay, you can have your German Shepherd, but you're going to pay $200, deposit. And people are like, what? And it's like because of their bad experience. But anything listed on the website is pet friendly. That is, we filter that out by the amenities so that people aren't looking at just every motel in Florida.
That always helps. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you have, again, you were able to design such a unique website that really hones in on it. I mean, you did such a great job on it. That's why it's like,
thank you.
I honestly will say thank you for all the people who probably are going, thank you for doing it, because what would we have ever done without it? Because honestly, there's not a lot out there to facilitate this, which again, 2018, you would think that there'd be nothing but this, but it's very far in between you. So you've really created something that, honestly, I'm surprised. I'm surprised nobody else has done it. So I'm glad that they haven't, Because
they have done it. And again, if I can tell you a real quick anecdote, I used to do a pet-friendly hurricane shelter guide. Because believe it or not, when I first started the website, hardly any counties had any kind of facility for pets. And so therefore people were not leaving their homes because they're not going to leave their pets. So they had, some of the counties started doing that. So as they did that, I also put that on the website. Here's some pet-friendly shelters in Duval County or Baker County or whatnot. And then as that grew, the list grew. And then I realized at some point it was probably better for people just to start listening to their own emergency services, because they changed the shelters around. One year it was this one, so that you couldn't really, every year it wasn't going to be the same information. Right. And it became so big, it became like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to spend 5 days calling every place and making sure. So I ended that. But one year, someone copied and pasted that entire pet-friendly shelter guide off of my website, put it on their website, and I won't name the website. You all know who you are. And then put their copyright notice on it.
Oh my God!
In other words, they just plagiarized the whole shebang. So, yeah, some people have tried, and there have been other websites that do have some dog parks on there or whatnot. But I have to say, I'm very proud. I think we are the most comprehensive pet-friendly resource guide for Florida on the internet today. So, and thank you for your compliment about it.
I don't think there's anybody else. It's just FloridaPets.net. That's the only one that's out there. That's all.
.net. And if sometimes people get confused. They're like, well, I went to the site, but it was just like tropical fish. I'm like, no, there is another site, but it's a .com, and that has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with pets, really. It's just, fish. So.
It's always funny, off topic a little bit, but it's always funny that .com, .net, I mean, all of these ... I mean, and if you're lucky enough to get the .com or whatever, boy, hold on to it, because
absolutely,
people are they're savage when it comes to it. They want that.
Yeah.
It's like people who own domains just to own them and to sell them, like it's real estate. What's wrong with you? Why would you want that?
That's right. Well, they found a way to make some money. Back when I named it, it was .com was taken, so I didn't know that it would be best to come up with something else and just do .com. But it seemed to me like, well, I said pet rhymes with net, and I was okay with that at that time. So it's just stuck. I've thought about changing the name of it through the years. I've had the opportunity to do a nice little something.com, and I was like, I'll just leave it the way it is. People are used to it now.
I think now that you brought up the pet net, I never thought of it that way, but I actually like that. That actually makes a lot more sense now. Huh. See, this is what makes everything so interesting to me.
Right.
I find the littlest things interesting. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go into restaurants, because everybody has to eat, and really, honestly, it's the two-legged animals that I'm more or less thinking about who have to eat, because I will ask about good doggy bistros for places for them to have really unique meals if you have any suggestions. But good restaurants to eat that are dog or cat. I don't know if there's a difference. I don't know if some places have issues, but pet-friendly restaurants.
Well, most of the time, your chain restaurants, if they have outdoor patios, I'm talking Applebee's, Chili's, some of the pizza joints, that are chain, they will allow pets. Panera Breads, I think, is another one. But I like those restaurants, but I really try to hone in on the mom and pops. Mm-hmm. So, and most of the time they do allow if they've got an outdoor patio, because that's part of the law, has to be the outdoor patio, which that's fine. So whatever city you're in, look around at the mom and pop. I have a lot of them listed on the website. I don't have quite as complete a list for the doggy dine as I do the dog parks, but I'm getting there. But look around at the smaller restaurants, the ones that seem like they're not chain restaurants. And if they've got an outdoor patio, just give them a call. Or if you're staying in a motel, ask the people at the motel if they know if they allow pets on their outdoor patios.
Is there any restaurants in Florida, whether it's where you're at right now or anywhere in Florida, that you're like, oh my gosh, if you're ever in Florida, you need to go to this restaurant?
Not one specific, because like I said, every Every town has their own little mom and pop places. I can name the ones I love right here in St. Augustine, but they're going to be different restaurants that I might like over in Pensacola. So most of the time, if you're in a seaside area, if it's a seafood restaurant, that's going to be the best place because they're going to have the fresh seafood. So that's really, I'm just one for trying them. Yay for mom and pops. That's what I say. Try the mom and pops first.
Mom and pops are great. I mean, obviously having a little mom and pop shop myself, I'm like, oh, more pops will do it. But
that's right.
You get the I guess the cookie cutter kind of menu when you go to a big chain. You know what you're going to get. Mom and pops,
right?
You might try something new, and that's not really for everybody. Me, I'm like, hey, try new.
Right.
Now, boarding facilities, because again, we're going to get into the next one will be theme parks. If there's anything to think about when bringing a dog or cat to a theme park. But boarding facilities in Florida, is there anyone who stands out as the right one to go to, or is there anything that people should know before they actually come to Florida?
Again, my suggestion to people that want to come to Florida is first of all, figure out where you want to come. If it's Orlando, okay, let's hone in on Orlando, and let's go to the website and find out where the dog boarding places are in that area, and then find out from the Better Business Bureau, have they had any complaints? Because they'll be there. If they've had complaints, they're going to be on that list. And how were they resolved if there were complaints? We've had a couple of incidents down here in Florida. I think one of them was actually in New Jersey from a national chain that was a grooming place. That would be, and you know what I'm talking about. So you want to avoid that happening. So call the Better Business Bureau, find out if they've had complaints. And this is with your planning before you come here. Make some phone calls and find out have they had complaints. Hone in on the city where you want to go. Find out where the boarding places are in that area. Make some calls and check out their website. Call them directly. Talk to them. Find out if they've ever had any difficulties in boarding any particular type of animal. Some people don't like to board the big dogs. They prefer the small. So just familiarize yourself with the place before you come is what I'm trying to say.
That's really good advice. A lot of people will just Expedia or some kind of website and just book and go when you don't realize that even if you're not going to travel with pets, and some people are probably listening to this going, well, I'm not going to travel with pets.
Right.
And, it's so important to really know every little aspect of where you're going. Your hotel, your kind of, in a sense, game plan it. I want to go to
that's what I said before you come. Make a plan and make some calls and do some research and such before you come. Ask for 3, this is what I personally tell everybody, ask for at least 2 references from the place. If you think to yourself, they seem like pretty good. I liked her when I talked to her. Ask for a couple of references of people that they're customers, and maybe they can call you, or maybe they, probably most of the time they'll give you the name and number easily, but sometimes they'll say, well, I'd rather let them know, and maybe you can call them. And I say, okay. But that's what I say. Get a couple of references from people that have used them. Find out what they thought of them. Most of the time, they'll tell you.
And what's great about the internet is that everything is right there. I mean, you can look up on Facebook just about everybody. You can see their reviews. You can actually see it there too. I mean, it's so transparent nowadays. I mean, I think back, oh my gosh, when even the last time I traveled, we didn't have it this easy. It was still difficult.
Right.
So definitely.
Do your homework.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what the best part is you've done most of the homework for everybody because it's right there. Where again, I guess we become almost complacent, and it's now just like air that it's going to be there. But somebody has to do the work, and you had to do all this work, and it's got to have been time consuming and almost demanding. Well,
it's 17 years worth, of the work, and I've had some help from some people that I've used to call them my little news hounds. And I need to initiate the program again because it was very helpful. People that lived in certain areas, the larger areas, could kind of keep me apprised if a dog park closed down or if somebody is now allowing doggy dining that didn't used to, that sort of thing. And I need to initiate it again because that really, I can't be everywhere. So that really helped keep me on top of stuff.
Right. And, you know, it's not like it's a small state that's just a couple lights drive through and you're through it. There's a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants. So it's definitely something that, you know, again, you got to do the work on it. But, and, you know, I'm just going to kind of breeze by theme parks because theme parks, look, they're all of their restrictions and everything is right there on their website. Now, your recommendation, if you're going to be traveling to Florida to go to any of the theme parks or anything like that, is it really something to travel with your dog or cat? Or is it something that you're like, man, you know, probably easier just to leave them at a boarding facility at home or have a pet sitter? Because personally, that's how I look at it. It's almost kind of difficult to travel and go see any of the theme parks that you're never going to be with your dog or cat. And then just to have them in a locked place kind of seems a little kind of harsh.
That's what I had mentioned at the beginning of our conversation was, you know, the dog, like Orlando in particular, all of those parks, it will take you a good day to get through them. And if you have the kind of dog that will just, you know, lay on the bed while you're gone and snooze, that's okay, leave them food and water and such. But at the same time, you might have a dog that's nervous about being away from you or likes to chew up stuff, and that dog might be better just left at home and have a pet sitter come in where he's familiar in his environment, and he's not going to get stressed out, and he's not going to you know, chew up stuff. So it just depends on your own personal situation. Right. It's not just coming to Florida; it's anywhere. You know, some people travel with their animals; they wouldn't go anywhere without them, and other people, because of the animal's personality or the animal's health issues, try to seek something alternative. And to me, the first choice, if you're not going to travel with your pet, is to have a pet sitter come into your own home. Someone you trust, come into your own home and let that pet be there in his own familiar environment.
I'm always a big fan.
He might not even miss you.
Right. I'm always a big fan of a friend or relative coming in and being a pet sitter. That way it's a lot less stressful. They're not put on a plane or driven around in a car for long distance. It's a lot of stress. So, but, you know, I respect that that's a child to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So I get that. Now, beaches. Now, you have a couple in Florida. Just a couple. And you had mentioned that, you know, there's definitely the leash, you know, make sure that they're on a leash. That I understand that that's kind of a no-brainer, but good point to add. Is there a particular beach that stands out as the premier beach to go with your dog?
Well, I'll say Northeast Florida beaches are probably the best right now. They still allow the leash dogs on any part of their beaches, and that would be Amelia Island, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and I think Daytona has some restrictions, but they still allow. Other areas, it's like a small portion now. They just like chopped it up so where it's just a very small beach or just for certain hours that they allow pets. Pensacola and Panama City used to allow pets, and unfortunately not as much now. I think that you even have to show you're a property owner to use some of those beaches over there, which is, I hope they change that at some point in the future. But there are a lot of regulations, ifs, ands, buts, and stuff. But to me, the Northeast Florida, because you can take your dog and they'll let you use all of the beaches and all of the time, as long as you keep them leashed.
So weird that they actually kind of almost private beach the area in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. But, you know, good to know, because a lot of people, again, research, but
right.
I would have never known that. So that helps.
There are places in Florida that are just more pet friendly.
Yeah.
And it's like when doggy dining started, some places were like, yay, great idea, and all the little restaurants registered and signed up for it, and it's still going strong. And in other areas, still to this day, even though it started in 2006, to this day, they're like, oh, we don't really know. That might not work here. It's like angsting through this stuff, and I don't understand the reason for it. So that's another thing to research. Find out how pet-friendly the places are that you want to go. Just in general, what is their attitude? Some of them, I've even said on the site, this is not a pet-friendly city.
You know what's funny is I was just thinking, people who are actually listening to this that are in other countries are probably enjoying it the most because they're getting to hear of cities, little towns, little places in the United States that they're probably thinking, maybe one day I want to go there. It just processed in my brain just this very second.
I have readers from different countries. I've heard from people from France and Germany and even Argentina before that they look at the site, and people do come over here from those other countries. So yeah, absolutely.
I always think it's always funny to be able to make content that is consumed all over the place, and you're just kind of going, really? Yeah. Right. And you see it with just looking on the website. You can see where your readers are coming from. And it's always so weird. It's like, I'll go back to a movie called The Cable Guy when he was talking about playing Mortal Kombat with a friend in Vietnam, and I'm thinking to myself, I remember watching that one of the first times thinking, well, how are you going to be able to play video games with somebody around the world? And now look at it's so simple. So weird.
This is a unifying topic. That's another reason I like having a pet-related website, is that it doesn't matter what political party you are. Yep. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic background you've come from. It doesn't matter. Not everybody has a pet, but everybody loves animals. Most everybody. The people that don't have them, I don't trust them. So anyway, but most people, that's the unifying topic, is your pet.
It is. And I like to always say that, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing, where I literally put myself as a dog or cat in a sense where I don't care about political parties. I don't care about social issues when it comes to this. It doesn't matter. There's other places for that. If you think about a dog or a cat, they don't care what party you are. They don't care what your religion is. They just care that you feed them and love them.
That's right.
Simple.
That is right.
If only life was just that simple, right?
Exactly. Now, I do try to promote readership among my readers of pet-related political issues. If it's an animal-related issue, get involved with that issue. And let people know, I am a pet person, and I vote. And you need to vote what I want you to on this pet-related issue. So I do promote that. So.
Well, there's some things that just they need to be brought up. So I can understand. I'll give that, because I probably do the same thing. So I'll give you that one.
For an example, we do, as you may be hearing, it's on our ballots this November to vote out the greyhound racing down here. That's a very political issue. Yeah, very political issue. But it's also a very animal-related issue because of how those greyhounds are not always treated very well. So that's something that everybody's talking about right now.
I still, to this day, I've seen different dog tracks that are apparently for race tracks that are for dogs. I've never been. I have no real desire to go. There is that curiosity to, interesting. But, especially with the greyhound, man, they are just treated so poorly. I mean, not all of them, but for the most part, it's like you hear the same story. They're used to do this, and then once they can't do it anymore, they're almost kind of dumped. And you're just like, what? So,
we have several greyhound rescue groups down here. And I'm thinking that if this does pass in November, they're going to be very, very busy. I think everybody should just say, I swear I will adopt a greyhound. But they're awesome dogs. They say they're just awesome dogs. Once they get into a home, they're very well behaved, and they're just good dogs. So people should definitely adopt a greyhound if you get a chance.
And what's funny about the whole thing is that the same thing has been said about horse racing, how barbaric it is and how bad they're treated. And I've gone to different tracks over my life, and I go there because, man, it is so much fun to be able to look at the horses and see these gorgeous animals and athletes in their best.
Yes.
I don't care about the actual race itself. I just love seeing these horses. I probably would do the same thing at a dog race, at one of these tracks. I'd probably be over there going, "Oh, that's a really cool dog," and want to, play with them.
Yeah.
But that's, again, these are things that really entertain me, is just being able to be around the animals. So,
exactly.
Go figure. Now, we've gone to beaches. Now, dog parks. I'm going to ask this question because it relates to the beaches. Are there any dog parks that are only allowed for, whether they're residents or property owners? Do they have any of that that's blocked off? Okay.
Yes. I don't have those listed on my site. And if there is a dog park that has a fee, like, well, we live here, but we'll let you use it if you pay such and such, I have that on there. But if they're just strictly, just for this housing development or just strictly for this town, no, I don't list those.
I think that's so strange. I mean, part of me goes, no, that's probably a good thing, but the other part of me is going, no, that's so, so nose in the air, foo-foo. Oh.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that down here in Florida in some areas, I have to admit. There is definitely that. But there are enough others that are open to the public and are available for everyone that those don't matter.
So, veterinarians, because unfortunately I've heard it so many times, people be on vacation and, my dog's sick for some reason. Now, I know you have a listing. Is there anybody that stands out as the one person you're like, if you needed a recommendation, that's, again, being the expert, always looking for recommendations. Is there a veterinarian that stands out, or would you just say they're all really good?
I would say the best thing to do is, before you go, if you know where you're going to go, again, this is preparation, call the local Humane Society, the Humane Society in that area, and ask them their recommendations for vets in the area.
Good point.
Because they're the ones that deal with the vets, and frequently they'll deal with more than one vet. It just depends on what's going on in the area. So that's a good place to start. Groomers, such as yourself, sitters, anybody that deals with pets on a regular basis, get some recommendations. They'll tell you, and they'll most likely tell you the truth about these vets, too.
Right.
Hey, don't go to him. Here's a good one, and then you can be on your way to get help. So that's what I tell people.
I'm surprised that they don't, jump out at you going, hey, would you like to see what we do? And just really try to get the influence. Because honestly, everything's transparent these days. And that's what's kind of made life a lot easier. Of course, it's made it a little bit more difficult because, again, preparation, as we've been talking about, kind of has gone by the wayside. For the fact that, well, we could just go on Facebook and it's right there.
Right.
So
and they could, but they can also go on Facebook and find the area Humane Society and give them a call or give them a message before they go and just ask, if I'm coming to this area, do you have a vet or two that you recommend in case of an emergency?
Right. Now, you mentioned doggy bistros, and yes. I find that to be interesting because, again, I'm in a place that it's still not really, people don't really look at dogs and cats as being as much a part of the family. It's still a dog or a cat to a lot of people. Right. So we don't have doggy bistros. Is there anyone that stands out to you that you're like, oh, this is a great one, or places that are more, I guess you could say, packed with them in Florida?
Well, Miami certainly has a lot, and the Tampa Bay area, again, has a lot. Northeast Florida has a lot. Is there a theme here? These are, to me, the most pet-friendly areas in Florida, period. Others are still struggling with what they want to do about all this stuff, and they could change their minds every day. And one day they would say yes, and the next day, nope. And so, but the areas I mentioned are definitely you're definitely going to find the pet-friendly places. Good
point. Best time of the year to visit?
Oh, right now is awesome. I always tell people April, May, October, November. And the reason is because the weather's, not just sweltering, mild, so that you could stand in line at those places in Orlando and just not stand there and have a heat stroke. And then in the fall, the same thing. But you're also not getting in the middle of our hurricane season. Our hurricane season starts May 1st, lasts through November 31st. And most of the worst storms we've had are in September and October, the first part of October. So if you come mid-October through November, you're going to be fine. If you come April, May, even the first part of June, you're going to be cool. So that's my favorite times down here too.
It's always funny to be in a place that has inclement weather that's as severe.
Yes.
I've never been through a hurricane, so I have no idea. But I have been through what's, in the area of tornadoes, and I imagine it's just about the same. It's kind of like, well, that's happening, and just hope that you don't get washed away with it.
Yes.
Of course, hurricanes last longer. That's the other part. You guys have them for a lot longer than if a tornado warning comes through. It's moments, and yet hurricanes could be hours, if not for longer.
Well, we usually get a couple of days notice ahead of time too, and they can kind of tell where the storm is headed. If it's headed our way, you can start making some preparations. You have like 3 levels of preparation. 1 is you're just keeping your eye on the weather reports. 2 is you're making sure you got the water and the batteries and the stuff. And then 3, you're saying, okay, where are we going to go? We moved into this house. We've lived here about a year and a half here in St. Augustine. We moved in on Monday. Tuesday, the cable guy came out and put everything in, said, hey, there's a storm coming. You guys need to be paying attention. And Wednesday, we had to evacuate to my father's in Ocala. So it was like boom, boom, boom. I still had boxes. We hadn't unpacked anything, and we had to leave our new home and go. And St. Augustine got hit kind of hard that year. So at least you get a warning, but you have to have a plan. Again, I'm just a big on plan, so you have to have a plan.
Well, I'll tell you, it's always good to have a plan. And again, a lot of people, I probably could be one of them. I will, more or less, I love to hear recommendations, especially when I travel. So I'm more or less prone to that, because a lot of people just don't have the time, so they rely on it. And that's where, you've put together a website that has everything that is right there to actually fill all these needs. And that's just such a benefit to so many people, probably me included. I'm right there with them.
Well, that's what I wanted to do, and I'm still working on, still getting more and more information on there. But that's what I wanted to do, is just give people the opportunity to go to one spot and kind of find out everything. Pet-friendly resources, statewide, boom. There's even a cat-friendly beach. By the way.
Now, do you have to have them on a leash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, not every beach requires the leashed provision, but there's still a few that you can just take them out there and let them run with the wind. You do have to have, you do have to have them on voice command. In other words, Barney! And then Barney comes immediately. Yeah? Not like my dogs. They're like, oh, we'll see you later. But there's not that many left. Most places now require that they're leashed. And that's just so they don't go up to anybody on the beach. Hey, how you doing? Not everybody likes to be, introduced to a 80-pound dog trying to jump in their lap. So, oh, he's friendly. He won't bother you. Well, he's already bothering me. If you have them on the leash, then they can, you can make them behave themselves a little bit better.
I love 80-pound dogs. 100-pound dogs come up to me. But again, to each his own. I would rather have a dog come up to me than a human most of the time.
Yeah.
Like 9 out of 10 times. Yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Now, here's something that I'm going to throw out there, because again, you're a planner, and a lot of people, and I'm going to put myself in this category, we're probably more of just a pack and go, but travel essentials that you would recommend for pets. Do you have anything that you would recommend people bring with them when they're on vacation?
Yes, I recommend that people bring 2 or 3 leashes in case one gets broken. Bring a longer leash so that when you're out on the beach, they can have a little longer berth out in front of you. a good collar, maybe even an extra collar in case that one breaks too, because things happen. Bring your pet's immunization records. If the vet will not give you a copy of them, write them down while you're standing in the vet's office so that you have proof that that animal has been vaccinated for the required diseases, against the required diseases, especially the rabies shot. I don't know, frankly, I don't know if the rest of the United States right now requires year-round heartworm medication, but it is necessary down here for both cats and pets. So if you're able to plan and you can get your pet, if they're not already on a good heartworm preventative, I would do that at least a month before you start to come. And any medications, if your pet is diabetic, your pet has seizures, whatnot, make sure you have enough of that to last you and not have, running out in the middle of your trip and then you're having to find a vet that might or might not refill that prescription for you. And if you do have a prescription for that pet, bring a copy of that prescription, too, in case you do have to get it refilled. It'll make that easier. Sunscreen for your pet, especially if they're white or fair-skinned or have not hairy patches, or their noses. They always need that on their noses. A little first aid kit. They have the little pet first aid kits for little cuts and scrapes and things that you can take care of yourself. Bring 2 or 3 vessels for water, so that you can give them water out of a plastic bottle at any time, no matter where you are. Don't forget, they need water even if they're in the car. They don't need a lot, because you don't have to stop and let them out a lot, but enough. Keep them hydrated. Their pet food, if they're used to a certain way that you fix it, make sure you have your spoons, and if they have a favorite bowl, bring their favorite bowl. If they have a favorite bed, bring their favorite bed. Whatever you can bring with them to make them feel comfortable. I can't really think of anything else right now. I feel like there's something else really important I'm leaving out. But for Florida in particular, specific is bring that sunscreen. And they do make sunscreen for pets, so that if they do happen to lick it, it's not going to hurt them.
That is just so much more of a prep than I'm ever in my life. When I have the retractable bowl for water, but I mean I'm probably not even half of that, of being that resourceful. That's way more than me. And see, that's kind of where it pops in my head. Yeah, you almost have to pack a bag just for your dog or your cat if you're going to travel. You know, and or you're going to be ended up in big box stores going, I need this, I need that, and it would happen.
I meant to add treats also, or something that pet finds irresistible, because there might be at some point, if you're on that beach and the leash slips, or you're in Home Depot and the leash slips, that you need to get them back to you immediately, or they're getting ready to cross a road and you're like, if you can say, Barney, treat, something, that they immediately look at you and you dangle that in front of them and they head back your way. I've had dogs, my own dogs, 2 or 3 times and saved their lives by doing that. So
that does help. I mean, I'll kind of throw this one. I have both Akitas, like I had mentioned. One's 8, the other's 7 months old, and it's funny because the 8-year-old is, of course, she knows all of her commands. You can open up the door, she'll go outside. You say house, she comes home. She never leaves the front yard. Now, the 7-month-old male, yeah, it's still a work in progress. He is off leash trained to do this, but if he sees a bird, it's shiny red ball.
Yeah.
Going that way.
Yeah, he's still a baby.
Yeah, it does take a little bit. So yeah, don't make those mistakes. Don't just expect that they're going to know.
Right.
Now, moving to Florida, that's always something that's going to take a little bit more preparation than just visiting, obviously. Are there specific real estate agents that are more, I guess, experienced on pet communities, or is it just one of those, just do the research?
Not anyone in particular. I mean, I know the national names, but I think that by now they know that people have pets, and they want facilities and amenities that that can increase the quality of life for the entire family. So all you got to do is tell them, we have dogs, we need a big backyard to run, we need a fence, whatever you need, you tell them.
Makes sense. Now, you were telling me, we were talking earlier today, and you were telling me about one of your actual articles you wrote about resumes and pet and resume, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember all of it correctly.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to hear that story because it seemed so interesting. And I was like, ooh, I want to hear.
One of my friends was trying to find an apartment where she could take her and be with her German Shepherd. And they kept saying, well, no, we don't want a big dog, or no, we don't allow dogs or whatnot. And then one of them turned to her one day and said, well, I might let you in, but I don't know anything about your pet. I know you, I've already read your references, and we've checked your credit and all that, but I don't know anything about your dog. And so she said to me, maybe we should start having resumes for our dogs. And it was kind of like a chuckle. And I thought about that night, and I was like, well, why not? And if that helps get some people into some apartments or condos or wherever, then so be it. So I came up with the article, and I just talk about how, that they need maybe a resume too, even the cat or the dog. You put a little bit of information about them, picture of them, maybe a reference from their veterinarian saying, he's a real good boy. He's had all his treatments and his shots, and maybe a reference from your neighbor saying, I have never heard him bark. He is not a barker. He's not a mean dog. I've seen him out in the lawn, whatever. And then, have a picture of him there, a good quality photo, makes him look really cute. And just maybe a little closing sentence thanking the person that's considering the resume for looking at it, and saying if you have any more questions, please feel free to contact, and then maybe give a friend's name or something that also knows your pet. Just like you would a resume.
I never thought of doing anything like that.
It's probably one of my most favorite articles on there as far as getting feedback from people. People do write to me and say, I never would have thought of that. Just what you said.
Never would have. Now, again, you've overachieved in many ways, but you decided, you know what, I'm even going to put a blog up here, which is what we're talking about as well. And right. I was reading a couple different articles. I was like, I was entertained. I've of course, if it's pet related, I'm always entertained, and I'm always interested.
Yeah.
So the curiosity always comes into what made you think, hey, you know what, I'm going to start a blog as well, because that's a challenge in itself, something I can't do.
Well, it's something that, when I'm doing the listings, like the dog parks and the restaurants and stuff, that's just kind of compiling information, researching and compiling. I'm a former newspaper reporter and editor, so that comes easy to me. And also I found out, I was like, I'm not writing anything. I miss writing something. And so I said, hey, everybody else is writing a blog. Why not me too? So I do that, and I'll throw articles up, or other people will write to me and say, can I write an article for your site? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. And I give them a byline and then a link to their page or their blog or whatever. And I get some good articles out of it that way too. So
that's amazing.
It was a way to soothe my writing itch, because I'm always itching to write.
That creative appetite, if that's the only way of really putting it, it's so funny. It's almost kind of this desire, like I'm starving to get all this information out, and then once you get it out, you're just like, I'm stuffed. I can't put anything else.
Yeah. There you go.
That's the writer's block portion where you're like, I'm now just stuffed. Like, went to a buffet and then nothing's left.
Right.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that we should have covered?
I would really like to mention one other page on my website that I do get a lot of feedback, and personally, this was from my heart. Everything else is from the playful side of me, but this page is my serious side, and it's called Aid for Pets, and it's also under the resources on my website. But I try to keep it updated. It's basically for people out there who are struggling to keep their pet. Rather than taking it to the Humane Society or a rescue, which they're already all overburdened, it might be just a matter of getting some help to buy the food, or maybe they need an operation and the person can't afford it. I mean, one of the ways I got one of my dogs was a person just couldn't afford heartworm treatment, so they just dumped the dog in my neighborhood and found out shortly after it had heartworm. But not it. So this is a way, these resources are places that can help people keep their pet despite financial situations that might otherwise make them have to give them up. I have all kinds of pet food resources on here, and I have places where you can get free medication for your pet, because a lot of places that offer the free medication for people also offer it for the pets because they take the same stuff. Not all the same stuff, but some of the things are same. Housing issues. If you're having trouble affording your rent, or you're having trouble, all of a sudden the people say, nope, can't keep the pet anymore. These are places that maybe can help you. Spaying and neutering. A lot of people, certainly if they can't afford food, they can't afford the spaying and neutering. So I have a real good list on there of places where people can get low cost or even free care. Sick or injured care, that's another category. Or if say your dog gets hit by a car and you don't have the money to take care of it, and the vet's like, I can't do it for free. So there are a few resources there that could help with that. I even have some resources on here, Chris, you might get a kick out of, for things like pet coats, which is good actually for the homeless people. There are, believe it or not, homeless people have pets too.
Yep.
And they need help. So I'm also just a distribution point for an organization called Pets of the Homeless.
Nice.
Because it kills me to see these people out on the streets with their pets. Because if they're hungry, the pets are hungry, it's just bad. But there are a couple of resources on there for that, and just in general, people with, say, I love people too, so there are resources on there to help for food or medicine. Even if you need your house cleaned and you've been undergoing chemo, there is a group out there that will even come in and clean your house for free. So I really tried to find things like that too. And it's all on the Pet for Aid page, and I'm very proud of it. And I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to mention that.
No, I thank you for doing it. I mean, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I completely understand just the need to be able to help, because we do it with a nonprofit here, and it's such a rewarding feeling to give your time to try to help. Again, not everybody is that's why we say 9 out of 10 people, kind of leave me alone. But there's that one that I'm just like, I really want to see if I can help, and usually they need it.
Well, for me, it's like by the grace of God. And, I have been hungry before, so I kind of know what that's like. And so if you can give a hand up, I mean, one time one person helped me by just simply buying ink for my printer so I could send out some resumes. This is many years ago. That was maybe a $7 ink cartridge, but it made all the difference in my life. So I have tried to pass that on in many ways since then, because she doesn't know how much that made a difference. I tried to pay her back later, and she wouldn't take it. But if we can do one little thing for people, and if they have pets, do one thing for their pets as well, then we might say we've had a really good day.
Yeah, I can honestly say, I mean, I'm one of those people that I've obviously with this podcast have been very vocal about how I hate dry kibble, but last Saturday of every month, right at the shelter, we give out free dog and cat food to low income, and it's the most rewarding feeling in this world, just to be able to do things for, not just for the dogs or cats, but for the people itself. Right. Because it's, crap happens. And absolutely. I think that sometimes we all just kind of get stuck in our own world and our own problems and forget, people have it worse than us. Right. There's always somebody who has it worse. And if we can just give a little bit of our, even if it's just time is more valuable than money a lot of times. Absolutely, yes, absolutely. People can throw money at anything, but it's giving your time. It's a personal connection. Yeah. And just the resource of being able to put all that up on your website, that time is so valuable that no dollar figure can ever take its place. So very much appreciate all that you're doing on that end, because it's a resource that definitely is needed.
Yes, that's my heart. When somebody looks at the website, they go, "Oh, this is so cute," or "Oh, wow, all this list." That's the fun part of me. That's the fun part of Patricia. And then they look at the pet for that is strictly my heart. If you look at that page, you see my heart. So.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you.
Well, of course, I always say this. Please don't be a stranger. And what is great is that I know you won't be. So come back, tell us more about anything that's going on, any kind of updates that we all should know in Florida. And it's always appreciative to be able to take this little trip with you. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. And you've given me some ideas of things I can beef up on the side a little bit that maybe people would be looking at that don't live here. So I appreciate that as well. And thank you for the opportunity. And I hope you'll invite me back again real soon.
You don't need an invitation. You're welcome back anytime.
All right, Chris.
Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go. It's my bedtime.